From my story to your story, let's talk about grief. I will share my own grief journey, along with interviewing others about their path of sorrow and healing. I hope that you, the listener, will hear something that helps as you navigate your own grief, and that God will be glorified along the way. This content is meant as a discussion and not to give professional help. Let's get started.
Today, this is my daughter-in-law, Lauren, who is married to Justin, my middle son. And I say daughter-in-law, but I mean daughter-in-love because I love my daughter-in-law. Perspective on it. My husband passed away at the age of 55. And Lauren, at that time, you had known Dad for, we figured out, 7 years. Mm-hmm. So that's a long time.
Yeah.
It's long enough to really have a good relationship with somebody and grow and really love them. So I'm going to start out with, is there anything that you remember about Dad as far as when you met him and maybe there at the beginning?
Yes, I remember. So I came up here right after Christmas, right after Justin and I started talking, and I think we were here like overnight, and then we went to West Virginia, and I just remember sitting in the Durango, and it was your white Durango that had the buttons you could push to make the headrest go down.
Oh, yes.
So he thought that was pretty funny.
Did he hit you in the back?
Yes,
the entire in the back of the head.
Yes,
with that?
the
That
entire
sounds like
trip.
him.
He would do it, and then for an hour it would be fine. Then all of a sudden, wham, and you go forward again. I do remember that. And of course, he may have just been trying to like haze me. I don't know. I remember when we got to, I think it was Janelle's house.
Okay.
There was so many cars there. We had to park kind of to the road, and it had snowed.
Oh, my
So
stars.
he put our side on the side with the snow. And of course his side is just driveway, and he's just like kind of, I could see him giggling, so, which is fine. And of course at that point, being from Georgia, I'm just like, it's
snow?
freezing and there's snow everywhere. So I do remember that, thinking like, he did that on purpose. Like in a fun, not a mean way,
right,
a funny way,
just
like
being
pick
silly.
at you.
Oh yeah, that's how he did things.
And I do remember my first church service.
Okay.
He had me stand up in front of everybody. I was in the back of the auditorium. I think we were sitting with Nan and Pop.
Okay.
Justin and I were. And he said, Justin's got a friend here. And of course, everybody was like,
oh my stars.
turning.
I don't remember that.
Yeah. Oh, I do.
Bless your heart. What if y'all hadn't continued to do it?
Yeah. He had everybody like turn, and then he told everybody where I was from and my name. And he's like, now, after church, I want everybody to go ask her how to say these certain words, because he was making fun of my accent.
Oh, yeah.
So, and people did. They very much did come up to me and ask me how to say certain things.
Oh, my
so
goodness.
I do remember that being like,
what?
because I'm not one to be like, look at, I'm in the center.
Yes,
so when he had me stand up, I was just like,
you think about,
hi.
thinking back about that, I can't believe he did that.
Yeah.
To be honest.
I think he knew we could pick at each other.
Mm-hmm.
I really did. I think he knew that relationship was going to happen.
And he had your personality where he didn't like to be the limelight. So I wonder if maybe he also really thought you were the one.
Yeah. I mean, I think he knew like that was going to stick, and that was going to be like our thing. Like constantly we're kind of picking. Nothing ever mean or hurtful, or nobody got hurt, but constantly picking. And I know when we lived in the apartment, I think when we first got married, I think it was on Wednesday nights, like what was the show? The Duck Commander show?
Yes.
That's when that was like really big and coming out.
Yes.
So I remember some nights Justin would be working, and I'd come up and I'd watch it. We'd watch it together.
Yes, because you love
because I loved all of it.
And you love out in the woods.
He's like, it's on. So I come up. Or sometimes he'd text me and say, there's cookies up. I mean, all the time. That was like one of the perks of living in the apartment.
Yeah, they lived in an apartment that was below the rest of our house. It was private, separate entrance and all that. But for the first year.
It was constantly saying, I've got extra food. But my favorite was when he would text me and say, I've got cookies, chocolate chip cookies.
Yes.
So I'd scurry on up and get my cookies.
I love it. So, I mean, just you can tell from what you're saying, but to reiterate, did you feel close to him, like he was in your inner circle? Because I think it's important for people to realize that.
Yeah, it wasn't like a long distance.
Right.
Like we got married and then moved like halfway across the country or something like that, where we only saw, Justin's family like twice a year. Like it was kind of like, oh, hi, I care for you. But like, we were around each other all the time, really.
Yes.
Especially that first, I guess we lived down there for a year and a half. We had Remy and brought him home to the apartment.
Right. That's right.
And then I remember he was pretty much crawling and kind of walking a little bit. And we bought the house out in New Kent.
Okay.
I do remember, though, we had his first birthday party there.
Yes. Yeah,
so
that's
he
right.
Was
we did.
Yeah, it was the construction theme.
That's right. It was adorable.
Yeah. We had that there. So I think we moved when he was probably like 1.5, maybe.
Right.
I don't think he was 2 yet. I know it was close enough they kind of thought we could have his party at our new house, but it just didn't happen. So we had everybody out there. And
really you all were only married a year, right?
Right.
When you got pregnant with Remy.
Yeah, we celebrated our first wedding anniversary on August 3rd. And then he came the 24th because he came early. He came a month early.
That's right.
Yeah.
And of course, I want to talk about that in a whole different episode. But you had health problems.
Yeah.
Doctor said if you're going to have babies, try now. And you all did try right away. And God graciously gave you two.
Yep.
And we're going to. I want that to be a whole separate topic. But so yes, you all lived down there and.
2 separate times.
That was Then you came back when your house sold overnight when you put it up for sale.
Literally overnight, and then we're going to build.
I remember Justin calling and saying,
can we
"Mom,
move back?"
can we move back into the basement apartment?" I was like, "What?" With 2 kids.
She got rid of us. Yeah.
Well, I think that shows 2 things. I think it shows the relationship we had, that you all could live there and not go
that you let us live
completely
there.
nuts. Yes, I say that, but it speaks volumes of you. As the in-law, so to speak, in-laws get a bad rap, and I understand there are things, there are situations where in-laws, it's hard or whatever, but in our situation, it does show your patience, and I'll talk about that too, even in just checking and staying with me after Dad passed. But you just putting up with the differences in the way your mother-in-law might do things or your father-in-law or whatever, and living downstairs, even though we try to give each other privacy, it's hard to live like that at times, even in the best situations. And so it shows good of you and good of Dad. But so what do you think of when you think about Dad? Like whether it's characteristic trait or something you shared or...
Immediately, my mind always goes to this. It goes to chickens. It really does. The man loved his chickens.
Yes.
I feel like that was kind of our thing. I mean, I know it was, people kind of helped out here and there, but I feel like that was kind of our thing because I would go out and be the one to chase them and get them and put them back in the pen.
Yes.
And then when the
Houdini.
Possum, I forgot about Houdini. I'll come back.
Right,
I'll circle back to him.
Let's go to a possum.
The possum, the big fat possum, kept getting in and killing them.
Yes.
And it finally killed Remy's chicken, who at the time I think was only Remy was 2 or 3, I think, when it happened.
Yeah.
He wasn't school yet.
Yes.
And was very upset about it. So we put traps out. I guess I can say this on here. Sorry.
I know.
Put traps out, and it was a very fat possum. He was just having a smorgasbord on the chickens, and Remy was upset, so we...
What's funny is Remy tells about...
Took care of him.
Yeah, Remy tells how we took care of him. You'll have to watch the episode with Remy to find that out.
Right there with them, and I'm like, do you want to do this? Do you want Mom to do it? So we kind of did it together, and no more chickens were eaten by that possum.
Oh, there you go.
Later, other animals got to him, but that possum was no more. And then Houdini, I hated that chicken. And I know people probably thought I killed him. When I found him dead...
I know.
People probably
maybe Lauren helped.
Did you really find him? I'm not gonna lie, I was pretty excited when I found him dead. Houdini was a chicken that kept getting out of the pen. hence the name Houdini.
Yes.
And like to come to the back doors of the apartment and poop.
Right where you
right
step
where you're
out.
going to step. So I, on multiple occasions, would come out, step in it, not realize it. I remember one time we were getting ready to leave for Georgia,
Yes.
and I had never wanted to wring that chicken's neck as much as that day. I stepped in it and didn't realize it and came back in the apartment.
Oh, and
So
trying to
it's
get ready
all over
to
the
go
carpet.
out of town.
Yeah, all over the carpet, the rug, and I was just so mad. So I'm in there scrubbing, trying to get it cleaned. And then he also liked to poop in front of my car door.
Yes.
I think he knew which one was the driver's side.
Oh,
he really did.
He did, because he would peck on the door.
Yeah. Didn't he get in a lady's car one time?
Yes, the lady picked up furniture. She left the door open. We both went in to get the furniture. We come out and she screams, and I look, and Houdini's literally sitting in the passenger side of the car, and all I could think of was, oh, did he go in her car? Did he go in her car? But fortunately, we just shooed him out, and he had not. But yes, he was
a terror.
He was a little bit like a human.
Yeah, he would come, like when I would have the blinds drawn or pulled up on those French doors, he would come and
Peck to get in.
Peck at the door just constantly until you opened it. Of course, I never let him in intentionally. But yeah, that day I found him. I was like, oh, thank you, Lord.
Yes.
So
she was not sad that he passed away.
I wasn't. So I took care of him. Not the same way we took care of the person.
Right.
I didn't kill him, I promise. I really think it was hunting dogs because they had been around the
Yes.
house that week. And I really think it was the dogs that did it. But I did. I got his body up and
I didn't realize you took care of him after.
I did.
So, as I emphasized...
Cheerfully took him away.
As I emphasized earlier, Lauren hunts, fishes, and even though, she's just a Southern girl through and through. Beautiful, but just right there with you on the outdoor sports. And so she shared that with Dad and the outdoor stuff and the chickens and all that kind of stuff. What do you think of when you think of his personality traits or his characteristics?
Well, he loved to cook, which I was a huge fan of, especially starting out, living in the apartment like we did. I could cook. I use that term very loosely. Very loosely. Wow. My mom and my sister are fantastic cooks. They can make anything from scratch, follow the recipe. So growing up, I never had to because they did it.
Right.
So I never, truly cooked like they did. So when we first were married, I'm sure Justin was very thankful that we lived in the apartment because Dad fed us quite often.
He did like to cook.
He did. He liked to share it too.
Yes.
Anytime he cooked, especially if Justin was at work, he'd say, I've got food. Or I loved it when he made the potato soup. The chocolate chip cookies were my favorite. And then his barbecue, of course.
Absolutely.
Anytime he made that, I'm like,
famous for his barbecue.
Yeah. I didn't even ask if he had extra. I would just come take it.
Yes.
Because you could smell it cooking in the middle of the night. You wake up at 3 a.m.
Right.
He's cooking. He's cooking his
And then
barbecue.
you can't sleep for a couple hours because your
sleep.
stomach is just churning.
Yeah.
So you think of him as a good cook. Anything else?
His cooking for sure. Anytime you needed something, he was there. I remember one time I needed to go to the doctor and it had snowed. Okay. Again, I'm from Southeast Georgia.
Georgia girl.
We don't get snow. So I needed to go to the doctor, and Justin, I think, was at work. And it wasn't an emergency or anything, but it was a doctor's appointment, and I couldn't cancel it last minute. And he came and picked me up and took me and waited and brought me back home. And I'm sure, if I really thought about it, there's multiple, times like that he did. He did that. And another thing that kind of just popped into my mind was when we were living in New Kent. Remy, I think, I can't remember if it was croup or something really bad. He wasn't in the hospital, but it was kind of that teeter-tot, maybe we should, put him in. So we were trying stuff at home first, antibiotic. And he came by a Sunday afternoon after he'd preached Sunday morning, Sunday school, church. He came by and brought me my favorite drink and candy bar, which is a cherry Coke and Reese's.
Yes,
anybody
he
wants
did
to know.
That.
He brought that, and then he brought Justin his, which would be like a fast break, and probably at the time was a root beer.
Probably.
And then he brought Remy, which he still talks about. I don't know if he did on his little episode, but the bug juice.
Oh, yes.
He brought him every flavor
bug juice, yes.
of bug juice, and of course, junk food.
Oh.
But even Remy remembers that, and I have pictures.
I was going to say, I remember pictures of that.
Because we brought him out. Yeah, we brought him outside. I can't remember what it was
to
he
get some
had.
sunshine.
We brought him out to get fresh air, but just to be outside, so Dad wasn't coming in. It's just German festive house. I can't remember if it was like the flu, because he didn't care, of course.
But I do remember he was really sick, like maybe his breathing
Probably.
and dehydrated. Obviously, the 7 bug juices or whatever they were.
Yeah. But of course, Dad didn't care. He's like, I'll come inside. I don't care. But I remember the pictures we have, Remy sitting on our table outside in front of him in his diaper.
Yes.
He's got all the bug juices around him.
Yes.
Just smiling, multiple things like that. He would just bring stuff by, kind of like Nan and Pop, just drop by. We have food.
Stuff. Yes,
We've been to Tom Leonard's or BJ's. We're gonna come by.
Here we come.
And it was like groceries for like a month.
Right.
You never had to buy groceries hardly.
Very thoughtful.
Yeah.
Yes, he got that. I would say he learned that well from his parents.
Yeah, came by it honestly.
Doing nice stuff for people. So to kind of enter the little bit of the darker side of it, or what was it like? First of all, we'll talk about it from your standpoint of married to someone who lost their dad. What was it like to watch Justin grieve? How did you deal with that? Just anything you want to tell us about that?
Well, honestly, like when I think about it, which I know a lot of people say this probably, it's like a blur.
Yes.
It really is.
I do think shock does that for you.
It's like kind of hard to pinpoint like certain emotions. Like you remember like the big stuff, I think, but just like the little details, I feel like I'm like, I just can't remember. I remember when that morning when he left, I don't know, there was just kind of like a cloud that had settled on that day. Like he knew something was right. Coming, something was wrong, which I feel like Justin knew that night when he came home. But I remember him calling me saying, he just getting out what he could, he's gone. And like, that's it. He's gone.
Because weren't you coming back from a doctor's appointment or something?
No, I was at home.
You were?
We were at home. I had gotten up. Remy was in school still.
Oh, okay. That's what it was. So you're taking Remy.
So I had drove all the way in, dropped Remy off.
That's what it was. Okay.
Justin was at home with Barrett. As soon as I got home, Justin was like, I need to leave.
Okay.
He went on.
Okay.
So I knew, I just could feel something.
Not okay.
Something. So I got Barrett dressed. I think I got us all like changes of clothes and pajamas.
Oh, wow. Look at you.
I do remember that. I remember thinking, I need to pack an overnight bag.
And you are that person who is organized and prepared. She's always
probably
prepared.
A little much so.
Always prepared. No, I think it's great.
I remember doing that. I remember saying, I'm just going to take the time real quick and just grab pajamas, clothes, toothbrush, medicines, diapers, what we need. And I think I had made it to the light at King William.
Okay.
Right there at the light, like, Food Lion and Burger King.
Okay.
When he called me.
Okay.
And that time I had my charger, so
you were on the... You were driving.
I was on the way in, like just trying to get in, because I wasn't sure if y'all were still at the house or where you were. Because at that point, I didn't know it had happened. I could feel, you could feel something. I was just trying to get in. Yeah. And his phone popped up, like his name popped up on my screen and the charger, and I just knew, like I knew that's what it was. So he got out, like he's gone, and I honestly can't remember a ton. I don't think he said a whole lot. He said he's gone. He just kept repeating that over and over.
Oh my.
So I do remember saying, like, where are you at? He said, the hospital. I said, regionally. He said, yes. Like, I'll go get Remy. I'll be right there. So I remember getting off the phone with him, and it was like just like a shock, like.
Yeah, it's almost like your body braces. Like, I need to get to Justin. I need to.
So I do remember, though, because I still had at least 30 minutes to the school to get Remy. So I remember calling my mom and telling her.
See, this is all a blur to me because I didn't remember that part.
Yeah, because he was in K5,
so that's where you were that morning. I knew you were coming from somewhere, and he waited on you to get there before he came to the house.
Yeah, I had dropped Remy
but I forgot
off.
that's what it was. Okay.
So I remember calling my mom and telling her, just getting the words out, you know. And she said, well, I'll call you, because my dad was, I think, on visitation. And he's like, well, I'll call Dad and your siblings, and you let me know if you need anything.
Okay.
So, and then I remember pulling up to the school and getting out, and Brother Young was outside.
And did they know? And did people there know? I don't remember if...
They didn't know that he had passed.
They knew it was serious.
They knew something was going on.
Okay.
And I just remember thinking, because Denise was in the office.
Yeah.
I just remember thinking, like, I can't go in and see her. She's going to know when she looks at me. She's going to know. So, and again, I think this is just how the Lord worked it out. Like, as soon as I pull up, like, right in Dad's parking spot, I pulled into his parking spot. Here comes Brother Young walking out of the church building, you know, going to the school building. And I just said, can you go into the office and check Remy out for me?
Oh, wow.
And I was like, I need to get to the hospital. I think they knew that something was going on. I think they were aware of it, but they didn't know, I don't think, the extent of it.
Okay.
But I just remember telling them, like, can you please just, like, I can't go in there.
Oh, wow. I didn't realize that, but yeah, that worked out.
It did. Like, he walked out as soon as I pulled up. I just remember asking, can you please go in and check Remy out, sign your name, my name, whatever, you know, is fine. Which I was comfortable with him doing it. You know, they're like another set of grandparents to the boys.
Exactly.
And he was like, I think he knew. Like, he just kind of looked at me, and I just kind of shook my head. I was like, he's gone. And he was like, what?
Yeah.
I was like, yeah. He goes, I'll be right back. So he went in. I was like, I can't go in there right now. So he went in and got Remy and brought him out to me. And then we got to the hospital. But just, you know, walking in to that.
Yeah.
You know, we didn't, like, I never actually went in the back. Because at that point, you know, everything had happened, and I don't think Justin was wanting to go.
Right.
You know, I didn't.
Because people deal with it differently.
Right. And I didn't ask, like, you know, if he wanted to go back and me go, that's fine. If not, of course, we had the boys with us.
Yes.
So I never actually went back into the room where they had, you know, he was at. But I, you know, I remember Nan and Pop being in there. I remember when I walked in with Remy, Pop, bless his heart, he just lost it, which I think it probably was like Don as a little boy.
Yes.
You know, walking in, because he looks just like him.
Yes.
So,
So as time went on, how did you cope with that? Do you feel like you had to set some grief aside, your own grief?
I think so, because again, it was just like, what? You know, like, what's going on? You know, type just shock, and, you know, like that, almost like, I don't know if it's the right term, is flight or fight, you know, mentality.
Oh, no, it is. Like, you have,
like, it's not like for my life,
yes.
but, you know, it's either like,
yes.
I can fall apart, like, you know, everybody else, rightfully so,
right.
you know, are doing.
Right.
Or you just...
But that's what happens.
Gotta do it. You gotta deal with it.
Yeah, and I do think that's what you go into that mode.
Yeah, for sure.
You have to be the one... I won't talk about the exact same situations I did with Joy, you know, with how I went into that when James went to college, you know, to help Dad. But I do think that's what happened. Your mind goes into that. And the reason I bring this up is because I think a lot of times what we call I'll call it a secondary person in someone's life, which you weren't. You know, we love our daughters-in-law like they're our own, even though you have your own wonderful mom and dad that are your mom and dad. We love being a part of your life and you being a part of ours. But I do think that, you know, sometimes like the daughter-in-law or a son-in-law, or I've even heard people talk about how, you know, when a parent loses a child and how that's one of the worst kinds of losses possible. But then, you know, people, not that they forget about them, but sometimes I think we picture like the sibling of the person who died as being secondary or a secondary loss and so sometimes, you know, it's interesting to me to go back and now, because I was in a blur back then, you know, to hear y'all's perspective and the grief you went through. And I do think you just kind of bolster yourself to help this person who's grieving extremely heavily.
You have to do that.
Right.
Like somebody has to, I mean, not like a pat on the back.
No, but it is.
But, like,
one of the
Joy-
people have to decide to do
Joy
it.
and Chrissy, did the same thing.
Yes, exactly.
Joy had 3 kids to take care of.
Right.
I think John and Chrissy been married a couple years at that point.
I would think so, yes.
She has her husband, new husband to take care of.
Right.
And, I've got my husband with 2 little boys, and, Joy and I both had school age. At least Remy and Elliot were school aged.
Yes.
Still trying to do normal life.
Right.
In the midst of it.
Right.
So it's kind of like somebody has to. So again, not a pat on the back or anything, or that made it any less, but you just kind of had to.
Yeah.
That's all I can say is you just had to.
Do you feel like with time you've had, like you've been able to think about it and do your own grieving and so
for
forth?
Sure. Yeah, for sure. I remember the first time, I think you were still over in that other house.
Mm-hmm.
I think I had to borrow the truck for something.
Oh, yes.
I can't remember if we were borrowing it, maybe because one of ours was in the shop. Who knows? But I remember getting in it and just like falling completely apart. And I'm like, what is wrong with me? And I'm kind of like, I haven't actually done this yet.
Yes, yeah. It's your turn to grieve. Exactly. That's exactly right.
And it was just not neat. Like, oh, this is great. But it was kind of like a release.
Yes.
Like, when you're so tense, and then finally, like, you get, like, on a heating pad or a nice hot shower, and then it's kind of like you can feel your muscles just...
Yes.
Yeah.
So I think that's important
for sure.
to think of that, to realize there are people who are delaying their grief, and not in a bad way, like they're, burying it, but they have to be the one that's strong in something, and then there comes a point where you have to deal with grief about whatever happened, whether it's a person or whether it's something that happens in your life. And anything else on your heart about any of this?
There was just so much that happened that is hard to remember. Like, people will say stuff, and I'm just like, I don't remember that. But then you'll remember the strangest thing, that I remember getting back to the house, and it was just like within maybe 2 hours, probably less than that, people were showing up with stuff, and I'm just like, wow, like how do you even get, like, go to the store and get stuff this fast, and just being amazed and blown away about how sweet everybody was. And I remember intercepting some of that at the door, because some of them, they wanted to show they cared, but didn't want to impose either, because it just happened like that day or the day after. It was the day after. And getting to talk with those people that came, and I won't even begin to try to name them, because it was, I'll leave somebody out.
I did a video about that, how, like, ideas for what to do for people, because
which is a very, very good.
Ours was amazing. I don't think I could have ever been more well cared for. But I do want to say this right here. I guess I said it back then. I'm sure I did not. Okay, I'm going to get a little teary on this one. But, sorry. I remember, I said this in Joy's interview too. And so I say personally to you, thank you for all that you did around that time and after. I think people should know, what a blessing they are in people's lives. I remember what you just said, that spurred that thought when you said I went to the door and received food or whatever people brought. I remember you came and stayed at my house. I don't know, was it the first week or two for sure, solid. And that's what the daughter-in-laws did. And I remember daughters-in-law to me, but I remember thinking, my normal personality was, wow, okay, stop, y'all are doing too much, or I'll get it, or whatever. But I was too distraught to do it. And not that y'all weren't distraught. It was like you said, somebody just had to do it. Yeah. And I remember noticing you all moving around, doing things, taking care of things. And I remember thinking, oh my goodness, they've got their own grief. They've got watching their husbands deal with this, watching their grandkids, and they're taking care of kids. And because the kids were little enough then, it wasn't like they just fended for themselves.
Yeah, they were. Barrett and Boston, I think, had just turned 3. Because Ellie had just turned 5, and then Remy turned 5 like the month before. And then
so
Lex
we had like 2 5-year-olds, 2
Lex
3-year-olds,
was 1.
and he was not. He was 10 months old.
Yeah, he wasn't
I think.
even 1 yet. Yeah.
So there was a lot to take care of just with children, and I do remember thinking what a blessing you all were and how you did take care of things. And then just your personality Justin's personality is to be the protector. And of course, Jamie was involved as a stepping in at church. And then eventually the church wanted him to come and be pastor. So their lives were full. John and Chrissy didn't live right there close by at the time. They did come and actually live with me for a little bit later.
Which I think was very good timing,
Yeah,
too.
It was perfect. Yeah. It was perfect.
Yeah.
And, but I do remember that you especially would just drop things and stay because Justin and Remy have that personality of protecting Mom. And I can remember y'all would come over. We'd all get together as a family like we would. It might be a Friday night or whatever. And we'd have our food, we'd have our time together, everybody would start leaving, and we would start talking about something with Dad, and I would tear up, and I was always on the front porch, y'all were at the vehicle ready to go, and I would get into tears over something, and I didn't do it on purpose. I didn't do it like, oh, I'm sad or afraid or y'all need to stay with me, but
it was hard. I mean, you go
it's
from
hard
having,
to, yes.
I have never been through that, and I hope I never do, but, I mean, you go from having your best friend right there beside you to they're not there anymore.
Exactly.
And then, and I know you had James and Joy right up the road, and we were about 30-ish minutes, 25
from
minutes
you.
away. Yeah. But, you're just, like, you're by yourself. And that, I know that was the thing. Justin just
couldn't handle that.
He couldn't handle it. Which,
I remember Remy would say.
Remy couldn't either.
He was so little, 5 or 6 years old, and he would look at his parents and say, I don't know if y'all are going home tonight, but I'm not leaving Nana. He was, matter of fact, it was like he would plant his body, I'm not leaving Nana. And then you all would exchange a look, and you would nod, and then you all would grab what you have, and you'd come back in the house and spend the night with me.
Yeah.
And but now, like I've come out to the house to keep the animals recently. So I remember thinking, packing everything up to go over there to keep the animals and thinking, Lauren is a gem. My daughters-in-laws are gems that they just dropped things and stayed there off and on all the time, especially those first 2 years. You and Justin especially just dropped everything. Not that you lived with me, but I mean, you probably felt like you did.
You kind of did.
And so
which Remy was ready to just move in.
Yeah, Remy would have moved in.
He would ask on multiple occasions, can't I just go live with Nana? It's by my school. I can see you at church. And I'm like, you're 5.
That was his, was and is his personality to
Very
take over
so.
and protect. And so.
Still is, yep.
I will say that to you personally, as a daughter-in-law, that I so appreciate. Because that could have been, you could have just said, and rightly so, we're not doing this. We have our own house. We have our own things to take care of. Your mom, she'll be fine. You've got to let her do this. And we did do that.
I know there were some times when you say, I need a couple of days. Like, text before you come by or something like that.
I need to grieve a little.
Yeah, and we would give you your space.
Yes.
And of course, we would, Justin would be like, have you heard from Mom? Is she okay? So we text and then come back over.
Yes.
But it wasn't like I have to do this. Like,
that's what I mean. You didn't act like that. You didn't act
I hope
huffy.
I didn't.
No, you didn't. Like, it wasn't huffy like, oh, here we go again, or I really wanted to go home and sleep in my own bed tonight. I mean, I'm sure those thoughts had to have crossed your mind sometimes, but you never acted like that. I appreciate it.
Well, of course. And let's knock on wood. If I had to do it again, which I hope I never have to, like, you do it. And not like, I gotta do it. Like, you do it because it's your family. Like, if my family was in the same situation, I know Justin would be right there doing the same thing. So, yeah.
Well, I appreciate everything. What one of the things I guess I would say, because you're at this vantage point to help others, you've got children who grieve, especially Remy was old enough to remember papaw, and they were very close.
Yeah.
Any thoughts on that? Anything you do to help a child through that, or anything you remember doing that seemed to...
Well, with Barrett, when it happened, we told him, but it just didn't really register, I don't think. I think he kind of was aware of what was going on, but it just didn't really register.
Right.
Remy, I think it did, But then, like you said, it took a while. Like they would kind of start to get irritated like a couple months later. And it's like, that's why. Like, oh, he's really not, in his recliner, you know. Or he's not, at the stove cooking me like a yummy meal. But I'm not a pro by any means, of course, because mine were younger. I do think it would be different if your kids, like if the kids were the age they are now.
Right.
I mean, I think it would be far worse, and I really wouldn't know what to say to somebody going through that. But with Remy, he did. I think he realized, and I think he was more tuned into the pain around him than being upset himself. But like you said, I think they did start to realize, oh, this is real. This isn't like Papa's gone for a little bit. He's sick in the hospital and he'll be back. Like, that's not going to happen. But I think too, what's important is to keep talking about him, even though it's hard. Like I remember the first probably year or two, Justin would be on his phone looking at pictures or videos or voicemails and, trying to show them to Remy and Barrett just so they remember his voice and Barrett remembers, this was Papaw, especially because he was so little. That was hard for Justin to do. Yes. And it was hard for both of us. Just oh my goodness, I can't listen to this. But if you don't, that's also, I think, detrimental to yourself.
Right.
And then to the kids, then, that they don't remember what his voice sounds like or how blue his eyes were or how curly. And that's one thing Remy prides himself in is his curls.
Just like his
Just like Papaw. So I think even though it is hard to do that, show them videos, show them pictures, pull out, you made those memory boxes for the boys.
Sure.
In the photo album for each grandkid with pictures of them with Papaw. Even though it is hard, get it out, do it, because it will help you, even though you don't think it is at that moment, especially if it's fresh.
Yes.
But it helps you, it helps them to remember them, and it's not like they're forgotten. And as time goes on, not that it's oh yeah, this is it's easy to do now, but it's not as hard to do now.
Right.
When you hear his voice or you see a picture, it's not you fall apart, all the way. And I think doing it from the start helps that.
I think so too.
If you don't do it for a year or two and then all of a sudden you do it, I feel like it would, again, we did it, so I don't know. I don't know.
It's
but I feel like you would reopen it and it would be all brand new again. So, I think just, I always tell Remy, you got your Papaw curls today. We mention him.
Yes. And then he feels it doesn't feel strange to talk about that he's not here.
It's why are we talking about him?
He's interwoven into our everyday life.
Yeah.
And even our life now with the kids growing up.
Yeah.
And us all still interwoven together. And then, as we'll talk about in other episodes, because I'll interview my husband now, I'm remarried. And, he lost his wife, so his family has their grief.
Yes.
And we talk about both of our former spouses in front of everybody. And we want to keep those memories alive with the grandkids.
Yeah,
and,
for sure.
And I do think there's, still we cry some over something, but it normalizes that, this person was a part of our lives, and we're not going to forget them, and we're still you're welcome to talk about them.
Right. And anytime the boys especially do something with cars, because they drive, we live out in the country, so they drive stuff all the time. They do something, or they're just being crazy outside, I'll say something Papaw would have thought that was funny.
Yeah, he would have laughed.
Justin will bring up a story about when Papaw did this, and just kind of they hear his name. It may not be every single day, every day we say something, but it is very often.
Yes.
And I think doing that, as hard as it is from the beginning, that would be my advice.
Okay.
Is
good advice.
Normalize it.
Yeah.
Even though it's hard for the first probably 2 or 3 years.
Yes.
It does get easier.
Yeah.
It doesn't take the pain away, but the pain isn't as almost like a heartbeat. Like,
right.
Like boom, boom, boom. It's
right.
more subtle.
Oh, there you go. That's a great way to
a good
describe
analogy.
it.
Like when it first happens, it's just like, it's there. But then you talk about them and it's just like, yeah, I miss them, but,
I'm carrying my grief differently.
Yes.
And, you're able to,
yeah,
I don't know, process it differently.
Right.
Like you said, it doesn't go away, but you process
right.
it differently.
And you can have a normal conversation, which the first conversation is like after it happens, like there's nothing wrong at all with following up and not even be able to finish the conversation. That's normal and that's healthy, I think, in my opinion. But, normalizing it and talking about it, the further you get out, you can sit and talk.
Yes.
And it's not like this big weight.
Right.
It's not like in your face. You haven't talked about it in forever.
Right.
So.
You come out further from it and learn how to carry the grief and to really, if you choose to really just be grateful for the time you had.
Right.
That's where I'm at. I'm very thankful for everything we had together and for every moment we had.
Yeah.
And what's come out of it. I mean, I get, Joy mentioned that. She said, oh, I forgot to say something about the vacations.
That was always fun. I remember our last few, I was like the two, at least, I was either very much expecting.
Yes, you were.
Or like the next year had, not even a 1-year-old. And I remember that one vacation. Was it the Outer Banks where the boys did the rope course? Was it the Outer Banks?
Yes.
Nags Head?
Or was that Tennessee?
I don't think it was Tennessee.
No, there was one in Nags Head. Yeah. Yes. Earlier on.
Yeah, I remember being so mad I couldn't do it.
Because here you are.
Because I had a big belly and they wouldn't let me. And I'm just like, I just stand down there like
young.
A dope watching everybody.
That was
yeah, that was disappointing. But
was that the...
I think I was pregnant with Remy.
Yeah.
So that would have been like our first, like my first family vacation with the Sumter side. Yeah. And I was, like, I think I had him, like, not even 2 months later. Because he came early, so I thought I had more time and I didn't.
Well, I think that was something so important to Dad. He grew up doing vacations with family. I grew up doing... because we lived out of town from both sets of grandparents, our vacations were always going home to see grandparents, which were wonderful memories for me. But they went somewhere and did something. Yeah. And I remember from the get-go, he had maximum, which, who knows? Now that I've taken Ramsey courses, I don't know that I'm doing all this right, but I'm going to say it on here anyway. We would have maximum taxes withheld. It was kind of like our little savings account. So then when we would get our tax return, get bigger tax return when the kids are there and all that. And we still got some tax return even as y'all got older, but we would take that. And that was specifically like, we're using this on vacation. Right. And so as y'all became adults, what we did was we would rent somewhere big enough to house whoever could come. And we would invite all of y'all. Yeah. And
a lot of times the West Virginia crew
would come join us.
I think that certain vacation they did.
Okay.
Because I remember, for whatever reason, because I couldn't do the ropes course.
Yes.
And Joy, she had just had Boston.
Yeah, because I remember pictures of the guys up there, but...
Yeah, she had just had Boston, so I don't think she really wanted to... I think
was that the vacation that I think my mom and Kyle came.
Yes, because I remember
and met us there, and I took the boys on a mom date.
That was the horseback riding.
I took them horseback riding on the beach.
Yeah.
And while we did that for you girls, because you were expecting and had tiny babies, I had massage therapy come to the house, set up, and give you all massages.
She had to bring the special table for me.
For the pregnant lady.
But I remember Grandma being there. And I remember her, it was lunchtime. I don't know why I remember this. It's so funny. It was lunchtime, and we were talking about eating, and she was like, well, what do you want to eat? I'll go get it. And she went upstairs and made me a big sandwich and brought it down. Yeah. But I remember that, and I think we got our nails done.
Yes.
I think.
Yes.
Because I had,
I tried to think, because you couldn't go horseback riding. I tried to come up with some things that would be neat for y'all.
Yeah, I had this bright, neon orange. I'm not really sure where my mind was.
It probably looked good with your tan at the time.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I was a beach ball at that point. So.
Well, but I remember that's what we were talking about. The vacations were a big deal to him. He would start buying food.
Oh,
I mean, 6 weeks.
Take a trailer.
6 weeks out or a month out, he would start planning meals and buying food and stocking up, and then
I remember many times him pulling his trailer behind with food
in it,
toilet paper,
all the things for the house that we rented, and And I'm so thankful. I would say that to people. Take the vacation. Figure out in your budget where you can go do that, even if it's something cheaper, even if it's something with like days. Camping or go a shorter amount of time. Figure out. And I mean, frankly, you can even do day trips. Dad was great about when the kids were growing up. He would, just say, hey, we're going to go visit this or do this. And we drive a little bit, do that thing, come back. We might splurge and do an overnight or whatever. Yeah. But memories matter, don't they? Now that we're on this side of it, not what all you bought them, although that there's some memories with that. But I mean, excuse me, they have memories. Yeah, that's what I meant. There's some memories that go along with that. Yes, but memories matter. Just now, our family has so much joy in looking back over each one of those vacations, where we went, what funny thing happened on that vacation, or what we did together, or what didn't even go right on it ended up being a good part of the memories.
I mean, that last year, if I'm remembering correctly, I don't think we were going to go on a vacation that last summer. If I remember correctly.
Well, it was the year before that we did not. Right. Because he was so upset about it.
Right. And then I think was it July?
Yeah, we went that July.
It was kind of like a last minute almost.
Yeah. Yes, it was. And I remember, I'll say this while we're here because we're talking about vacation. I remember the summer before, we waited too late to kind of confirm with all y'all's schedules. And so finally we were just like, you know what, it's not going to work out this summer. And I remember him being kind of grumpy, and he just wasn't ever really grumpy. And I was like, what is wrong with you? And I guess I had been complaining a little about, I just hate not taking the kids on a vacation. And he said, well, I hate it too. This was awful. I will never do this again. It's like, okay. And so that was the following year that we went back to the schedule of vacations. We had done them together all the way back through even Joy joining the family. Yeah. And, but yes, we went to Tennessee, and that was where I even think back and think that's where I remember and noticed that he was very tired.
Yeah, his back. He was having trouble with his back.
Starting to have trouble with his back.
So I remember he'd be in the kitchen cooking, and he would sit like he would sit on a stool to cook.
So I don't regret any of that. I look back on that and think we spent money each time to rent a home to invite our grown kids to come. I would do it over that exact way. Over and over 1,000 times. They are some of the best memories I've ever had.
It was always fun.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank you for sharing your heart with me today.
Thank you for having me.
I think it's nice to have your viewpoint for other people out there that are in the same or similar situations. I think it's neat to hear your heart, and it's sweet for me to be able to tell people what you are in my life. I love you very much. I know you have your own mom you're close to. I don't feel like I'm trying to replace your mom, but I feel like we're good friends. Close friends. And, I said with her, God picked who my sons have. I did pray for y'all before you ever came about, but I mean, if I had it to do over, I would go pick the exact same people that each of my sons have. I would. And you all fill in the gaps, and you're the strengths to their weaknesses, I feel like. So I'm thankful for that. And I just want to tell you I love you. And
love you too.
Thank you for all that you've been and done in my life so far.
And same. Ditto.
All right. Well, that's a wrap for us.
We appreciate you joining us today at Speak Your Grief with Sonia. Connect with us on Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube as new episodes are added weekly. Thank you again for joining us as we unpack our grief. We hope you have been reminded that you are not alone in this journey.